Hello and welcome to the Par 3 here on The Lines, thelines.com. If you haven't already yet, everything we do, absolutely free. Go in, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be talking the Masters, and we're going to be talking a lot of Masters. Matt Brown, Stephen Andress coming to you. And Stephen, we're going to handle this one a little bit differently because it is the Masters, first major of the year. And you know what? We make the rules. We'll do whatever the hell we want to whenever we're going to do this thing. And so typically you'll come in, you'll just get 3 plays from each of us, and you can get on your way. But it is the Masters, so we'll take a little bit of time here to talk about the odds board a little bit first, and then we can head into bets that are in our account. Scotty Scheffler is your overwhelming favorite here at about 4.5 to 1. Rory comes in about 10-11 to 1. Jon Rahm about 11-12 to 1. Xander sitting 14 pretty much across the board. Then you get into Brooks Koepka sitting 20, anywhere from 18 to 22. Market high on Hideki Matsuyama is 20 to 1 out there. 25 on Jordan Spieth, Joaquin Niemann at 28, and then everybody else is 30 or longer. Steven, when we take a look at this odds board, I mean, who can argue with the odds that are attached to Scotty Scheffler? I mean, if we take a look in the grand scheme of things here, yes, there are 89 players in theory, but like when you take out the olds and then you take out the amateurs and then you take out the dudes that have absolutely no shot whatsoever, it's really Scotty in a field of about 55 or 60. And so if you're talking about Scotty Scheffler in the form that he's in a field of about 55, 60 players, these odds add up. I know it's crazy to think, but these odds add up.
I agree with you. I ran a couple of the modeling services that I subscribe to, and the fair odds that I got spit out at me were about plus 420. So it's hard for me to argue. And I'm not into trends, Matt, but it's at least an interesting note that if you go back and look at Masters history this century and how often the favorites have won, a Masters betting favorite has not won the green jacket since Tiger Woods in 2005. So yes, he is the rightful favorite, but also his odds create a situation where we're going to get better value on potentially some of these other contenders. And if you are committed to Scotty, I would just try and get creative, perhaps. Like maybe
exposure in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, maybe it's a derivative market. Maybe it is, top American, where you take out some of the great Ryder Cups on the European
head-to-heads, groups.
Yeah.
DFS.
Or even like another championship future parlay. Like I have at least a small ticket on Scotty parlayed with like the Nuggets to win the NBA title, Matt. So
yeah, I mean, and honestly, you can get exposure to guys through DFS too that you aren't betting in the betting market, right? I mean, that's another one of the ways that if you just really want exposure to Scotty Scheffler, but you can't bear putting a 4 to 1 in your account, which I totally understand. Like I get it in an outright deal. Be overweight on him from a DFS perspective, right? Like have him in the majority of your lineups over there to where at least you can capitalize on the upside of him over on a different form. But I'm with you. Like I'm going to have Scotty Scheffler exposure. It's just not going to be in the outright market.
Quick hypothetical for you. Would you rather have one of Koepka or Matsuyama or Jordan Spieth or Xander Schauffele at only like 18 to 1. The other guys I mentioned are around 20 to 1. Would you rather have one of those guys, or would you rather parlay Scotty with the Nuggets to win the NBA title at 22 to 1? Because that's the price.
I mean, I think the odds of both happening are probably, like the reason they're the same is because they're about the same, for it to happen. I mean, for me, I'd probably rather just play an outright in the golf tournament because you get at least you get your money decided much quicker than having to wait until the middle of the summer as you do with with an NBA title or something like that. But I mean, if your bankroll accounts for it, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. Rory really struggling heading into last week and then kind of finally put it together. We have him second on the board. Kind of a leap of faith with Jon Rahm. He has been okay on LIV. I mean, he's been fine. He's placed okay in most of those. Yeah, he's been fine. We know with Schauffele what the story is with him. He's probably outside of Scotty Scheffler, the most consistent golfer on the PGA Tour. But the problem is he has a case of not being able to close it out and get into the winner's circle. Those are your 4 betting favorites as we sit right now. I mean, look. For me, Stephen, I can't pull the trigger on Rory because we got one good tournament out of him. There's a much longer history, dating back to like the end of 2023 and then all through 2024, where he was really struggling with his irons, really struggling around the green and all of that it's going to be tough for me to get there at that number. And Xander's just going to have to prove it to me. If I miss out on Xander's win, then I miss out on Xander's win. But at 14-1, the guy just hasn't been able to close out tournaments. If someone wants to argue with me, they want to bet Jon Rahm, go right ahead. He's not that far removed from the PGA Tour. He's played fine over on LIV. He's still one of the best drivers of the golf ball in the world. So if you wanted to go there, I wouldn't talk you off of a ledge. But I guess of the top guys, if you said, hey, you have to play one of the 4 guys that are under 20-1, right? You have to. I guess I would play Rahm.
I 100% agree with you, and it wouldn't even be a hard decision for me. I think you talk about a situation here, Matt, that is a dynamic that's new to golf betting. It's only the second Masters where we have the LIV guys coming over the PGA Tour guys. And the nature of that in golf betting is the vast majority of the market movers here are running a lot of modeling that's a lot of PGA Tour data based. So I don't think the market still knows quite what to do with some of these LIV guys, because in what world right now should Rory be a slightly bigger favorite than Jon Rahm based on how they've done in major championships? I understand that Xander Schauffele has been a kind of savvy pick for a lot of people. They run their numbers. He's at or near the top of a lot of the modeling services and the stats that people care about this week. But now that he's been bet and he's shorter than 15-1, how on earth can you justify Xander at 14-1 over Jon Rahm at 12-1? That makes no sense to me. And then Brooks Koepka, I understand the form sucks right now, and it's not what it was compared to what he was doing on the LIV Tour coming into the Masters last year. But, let's just, in a vacuum, look at Brooks Koepka's success in majors. He's got 5 majors. When he started becoming a premier golfer, he's played about 25 to 30 major championships, Matt. So, listen, I know this is not how it works. But if the guy's won 5 out of 30 majors or 5 out of 25 majors since he's been a big deal, shouldn't his odds in a major, including one where he's finished second twice, shouldn't his odds never start with a 2? Shouldn't it never be 20-1 or longer on Brooks Koepka?
I don't know. I actually think the odds are too short on him right now. All you're doing is betting. It's a leap of faith, right? You're just betting on feelings and heart and all the things and stuff like that, because there's no empirical data that leads us to believe that Brooks Koepka should be anything shorter than he is right now, right? Again, we have to just go on the fact that, hey, he steps up for majors, and hey, he plays better.
But hasn't he done that enough, Matt? But hasn't he quote unquote, flipped the switch enough over the past 5 years where we have to accept it at this point that it is well within the range of outcomes?
It's well within the range of outcomes, but that's why the number is where it is. I don't think that you can justify anything shorter than it is right now, because again, you're just going off of your feelings. And if we bet off our feelings, we're going to be broke. Right. And so there's everything, at least on the PGA Tour, he was still playing a lot, right? Even though his form was not great, he was still at least playing a lot. They don't play a lot over on LIV, and not only don't play a lot, he's been bad. So it's one of those things where you look and say, man, I'm not going to bet against Brooks Koepka. So I'm not going out into the head-to-head market and looking as Brooks Koepka as a target. I'm not going to do that at all. But at the same time, I can't say oh yeah, this guy should be 14 or 15 or something like that, just based off of, oh yeah, because, I feel like he's going to play great. Well, I feel like a lot of things. And if I went with what I feel like, then I would not be sitting here right now, because I would be working,
at some books, he's got the same price as Jordan Spieth. I understand Spieth's got the immaculate course history, but we have plenty of data to show dude can't hit an iron consistently right now across 4 rounds, and hitting an iron is kind of a big deal. So I know it's feelings and nerves and stuff, but if you're giving me 22-1 on Koepka versus 14-1 on Schauffele, I don't care. I don't care what Xander's data says. He very well may win the Masters. His tee to green has been awesome. But the guy can't close major tournaments. And Koepka has done it 5 times and come close to already getting a green jacket twice. So
the weirdest thing. So let me tell you the weird thing about this, and this is just because outright betting is so different than other betting.
Yeah.
I would rather have a Koepka outright ticket, but I would take Xander in a head-to-head over Koepka. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or Xander in a top 20 or a top 10. I get the idea. Yeah, for sure.
But Koepka, if he's in the mix, I have more confidence in him being able to close it out, right?
Yeah.
But if we're talking about in a vacuum of if we play this tournament 20 times, who likely finishes higher 20 times is probably Xander. Because, again, Xander is literally just he is a top 10 machine. I mean, the guy is literally just walks out there and falls asleep and finishes top 10. He doesn't win tournaments, but like he goes and finishes top 10 in every single tournament. So it's weird. Like I'd rather have an outright ticket on Koepka, but I'd rather have a head-to-head on Xander versus Koepka, because I think more times than not, when we're looking at range of outcomes, right? Like there is a range of outcome where Brooks Koepka does what he's done on Live, right? Which is, not be able to, finish about middle of the pack in a lot of these tournaments. And as to where the range of outcomes for Xander's, I mean, like seriously, what's the floor for Xander in a field of, like we said, probably really and truly only about 55, 60 contenders? Like 20th is like his floor, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his history, I mean, last year I think was the one really big disappointment he's had at the Masters, but he's had a ton of top 10s at Augusta here. I'm pulling it up right now. I take it back. So last year, T10, the year before is when he missed the cut. But before that, he's got 2 top 3s as well on his Augusta resume and another top 20. So, yes, he's always been in there. What I don't remember, Matt, is how often he's actually been in contention, or if this was just like Sunday moving up the leaderboard to make more money. I don't have that in the back of my head. I'm not sure. I certainly know he was well within the range of possibly stealing it and winning it the year Tiger Woods won it, because the other guys in front of him fell back, and Xander finished like a stroke back of Tiger in that amazing story of a year. So the ironic part is here we're sitting here debating Xander and Koepka. You can go over to the lines.com Discord, where our fantastic golf writer John Hasselbauer, he just bet both of them. So that it doesn't have to be a mutually exclusive decision, right? You can pick both.
Yeah. I a little teaser here to us getting into our par 3. I'm not going to have Koepka on my card this week, and if I lose, I guess. But I am 2 numbers and data and trying to separate gut and all the things as much as humanly possible when I bet golf, because again, golf can be deceiving, right? I mean, like everything is just completely everything is just. Oh, if we golf with just what we saw last week with Rory, we'd be like, oh yeah, whatever, Rory should definitely be that. But then no, you have to look like there's a far bigger sample size in 2024 of Rory really, really struggling with his irons and around the green and all this like that. And so is there any player in the world that could fix it in 1 week? I mean, one tournament? Sure. Rory McIlroy could definitely have done that. But I can't take that leap of faith, right? Like I can't just go with my gut and say like, oh yeah, Rory flipped the switch and turned it around in one tournament, so it's just that type of stuff for me in this one. Some other interesting names, and we'll get to our picks here in just a second as we continue on down the board. Like we said, the guys that are over 30-1, but kind of in that next tier: Ludwig Aberg, we have Wyndham Clark, Bryson DeChambeau, Will Zalatoris, Tony Finau, Victor Hovland, Matt Fitzpatrick, Patrick Cantlay, Dustin Johnson, and Cam Smith, Justin Thomas, Tommy Fleetwood, and Cam Young pretty much take us into that 50-1 market, and then everyone else is longer than that. Of that group right now, I can tell you I have absolutely no interest in Victor Hovland. I have absolutely no interest in Patrick Cantlay. I have absolutely no interest in Justin Thomas or Cam Smith. If you look, Steven, something's wrong with Victor again. Like last year when he really turned it on, he had fixed his around the green stuff and all of that. And if you look at his 2024, it's back to like not only losing strokes around the green, we're talking losing multiple strokes around the green to the field. Like Victor's doing something out there that isn't right. And so I can't go there. Patrick Cantlay, who used to be one of the most consistent players on tour, has been anything but in 2024 and is actually ranked in the bottom of a lot of categories that you would not think for him. Cantlay never going to make the card for me. And you and I had this discussion way back when we were just having the Live deal. I said, if there was any top tier player that I could see mailing it in once he got the check, I didn't say Bryson. I didn't say Rahm. I didn't say DJ. I didn't say Neiman. I said Cam Smith, and I think Cam Smith doesn't care about golf anymore, really. I mean, look, he withdraws last week because of illness. He's in Miami. He has only got to play 3 rounds of golf, for crying out loud. He withdraws. His results over on Live haven't been great. So no interest in him. And then
flu and not food poisoning.
Yeah, and listen, I was all in on Justin Thomas. You know this, a month ago. I was like, okay, it's rounding into form. He's going to get there. And then the friggin' wheels just came off. And so I can't get there on JT either. So there's a lot of guys in that second tier that I have absolutely no interest in. And depending on what head-to-heads end up popping up and different things, like they might actually become targets for me.
Yeah, stunning the fall of Victor Hovland from just the end of last year. This guy was like 15-1 on Masters futures, and now you can get 40 this week. And I get it. And, you know, in a one-off PGA Tour event, wouldn't even think about it. Would just bet the number. But you need to have some form coming into the Masters here and have some consistent tee to green play for me to consider you. And I just can't do it with Victor Hovland. So I agree with you there. Really, the only name in this tier from like, you know, 30 to 50 or 30 to 60 to 1 that I'm considering is Tony Finau, because his ball striking has been immaculate. He had like one event where it didn't go well, but other than that, like 4 of the past 5 events, really good tee to green, some of the best of his career on a couple of those. Yeah. It's just the putter has been lost. But at Augusta National, putting matters less because there's some of the toughest greens. Yeah. Really, maybe the toughest, Matt. Like, nobody gets these greens. Nobody putts well. Guys like Scotty have won the Masters who's typically a terrible putter. So if you're just elite tee to green and have distance off the tee, you know, I got to at least consider Tony now that he's sitting at 40.
Yeah, I think Tony is an interesting choice as well. So let's go ahead and get here. It is the par 3. We'll give you 3 plays on our card. If you want the full card, as always, head over to the Lines Discord, lines.com, upper right-hand corner. You can join for free to get everyone's full card over there. But, Steven, you are on the box. Let's do it.
All right. We're going to go a little bit further down here, and I want to start with Wyndham Clark. I can't quit him, and it's because his number is at 40 to 1 right now. Mm-hmm. This guy was shorter than that earlier in the week. Not much interest in him again. But if we just run numbers here on the PGA Tour guys, it was a hot take about a month ago when I said it. I don't think it's a hot take anymore. I think he's the second best player on the PGA Tour. He's come close to winning a couple of times this year, only falling behind Scotty in back-to-back events. Had a putt 360 out of the hole with the Players that would have put him in a playoff with Scotty Scheffler. And he's already a major champion. Now, the downside here is he's never played Augusta before. It's a rare instance where you have a major champion who's playing in his first Masters. And typically, course knowledge is a big deal at Augusta. So his putting prowess is a bit neutralized because of that with just the context of this event. But he hits it long off the tee. His irons have been greatly improved. And if chipping and putting becomes part of the equation here, he's one of the best on tour with that. So with a 4 next to his name, I have to consider it. And just ignore the fact that, you know, he falls into the category of a player has not won the Masters in his first try at Augusta since Fuzzy Zoeller in 1979, but his odds are too good, and his form this year has been too good to ignore.
Yeah, Wyndham Clark's on my outright card as well. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but there is a world that exists where Wyndham Clark is just really good. Right. I mean, we kind of looked at him as this kind of cute little story last year and like, oh, yeah, he's the dude that got the sports psychologist and turned things around and whatever and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but he's carried that over into this year and like, dude just might be really, really good, you know. And as you mentioned, he ticks really all of the boxes that I'm looking for this week. And so really love him. I actually think he is the very best value on the board at 40 to 1. When we talk about win equity, the win equity has been there for Wyndham Clark. So to get a number that long on him, to me, is just absolutely bonkers. So love him a ton this week. So again, on my outright card. If we're talking about a guy here that is not necessarily long on the odds board, but a guy that I'm going to take my first pick, I bet this, to be fair, the only tournament they put up way in advance is the Masters. So you are able to go there. So I bet Hideki back when he was 30 to 1. He's now down to 20 to 1 with the form that he's had right now and all that. So whatever, even at 20 to 1, right? When we compare him to all of these other guys kind of in that same range, Hideki Matsuyama, one, been there, done that already, as you mentioned, Masters, he's a major champion like you mentioned with Wyndham Clark. So already been there, done that. We don't have to worry about pressure getting to Hideki or any kind of stuff like that. Also, what do we love about guys at Augusta? We always think that Hideki's bad around the green. Hideki is awesome around the green. Hideki just can't putt. So we need guys to be able to chip it and get it somewhere close because, again, you're just going to miss greens here just the way that it is, right? And it's tricky chips. And it's like, Hideki is awesome around the green. He just can't putt. You just mentioned putting is not going to be a separator this week because putting is going to be very, very hard for everyone. He's already been able to overcome that once in his career, and I think he can do it again with the form that he's got right now. Really like the heater and the form that Hideki is on heading into this tournament after a kind of a mess start to 2024. Really started cranking it up there at the end of February, and so Hideki checks all the boxes for me as well. I understand 20-1 isn't super sexy, but it's still a good number on a guy that I think has a lot of win equity this week.
I agree. I'd take Hideki at 20-1 over Xander at 14-1 in a heartbeat. And I have bet Hideki. Again, context of this tournament, futures, I have a 50-1 on Hideki. That doesn't help anybody here. So what I'll say is, I will share my futures bets in total, the actual card I have, and then on Discord at thelines.com, I will also share if I was coming in cold this week, what my card would be with the current odds to make that helpful for everybody. And I'll kind of do that here as well on the par 3. So I mentioned Wyndham Clark, that kind of tier in the 20s, Hideki would be in consideration. Talked about Brooks Koepka. He's in consideration. In my real card, I've used bonus bets on Koepka just to kind of like put it out of my mind and out of the back of my head just to have some exposure to it. So he would be in consideration if I was coming in cold. The other guy in this range that I have to consider is another live guy, Matt. It's Joaquin Niemann. And what was interesting to me is that when I ran the modeling service I subscribed to that only uses PGA Tour data and used the stats that I care about most that I get from our great writer John Hasselbauer every week in his preview, over the past 50 rounds, Joaquin Niemann was top 5 behind guys like Scotty, Rory, and Wyndham Clark, who's also in the top 5. So when he was on the PGA Tour, which granted was a while ago, he fits for the Masters already. Coming off a top 20 last year in his I think it was his 3rd attempt at Augusta. So he already fit. Now, in this season, we don't have any data, but our eyeballs should tell us that he's clearly playing very good golf, winning on live, constantly in contention, going around the world to make sure Augusta can't ignore him and give him a special invite to this event. As motivated as anybody can possibly be, because he's not guaranteed starts in majors moving forward like some of the live guys who have already won majors. So must have a great week this week. And if he's sitting at 28-1, Niemann in this year's Masters is the equivalent of what Brooks Koepka was to me in last year's Masters. A really good golfer who we may not have hard data on, but our eyes and the results on live are telling us that he's one of, if not the best players on that tour, at least in terms of results this season. So Joaquin Niemann 28-1. It's come down a lot from 55-1 about a month and a half ago, Matt. But given the names in this tier, I still think it's a fair price.
No, for sure. I do have a site that gives live data. It doesn't go back all the way, but I mean, I can look at least like the last, basically the last few months. We're talking about a guy off the tee over in Jeddah where he won, gained 3.3 strokes off the tee. He T4'd in Hong Kong, gained 1.2 off the tee. In Miami just last week, he T9'd at 2.2 strokes off the tee. He gained on approach in all 3 of those. He gained ball striking all 3 of those. He gained tee to green all 3 of those tournaments as well, including 7 strokes last week in Miami, tee to green on the field. He just lost putting, and as we know, putting kind of comes and goes. There are very few guys that are super consistent putters, and so I'm not really all worried about that. I have in a top 20 on Niemann. I might end up pulling an outright on him as well, as you mentioned. I mean, he got cut at last year's Open Championship, and since then has just really, really turned things around. Won twice on the Live Tour. He won on the Euro Tour as well. He has a 3rd, a 5th, 2 T4s, and now a T9 over on Live as well. So, yes, there's a little bit of a leap of faith as we're talking about here, Stephen, because it is a small field over on Live. He's not competing against the best golfers in the world over on Live, but he's still going out there and scoring a ton at these courses. And so, and there is at least a little bit of history with Neiman here at the course as well. So I like him a pretty good amount from that perspective too. So do like me some Joaquin Neiman. Like I said, have a top 20 in right now. Could possibly be looking at something a little bit more on him. This next guy it's pretty interesting. He's sitting 40-1. I have a future on him that wasn't even all that much longer than this. It had gotten way down and now it's ballooned back up. Will Zalatoris, I have a 49-1 from a future a long time ago, but he's sitting 40-1 right now. Will Zalatoris is another one of those guys that, Steven, if you look, I think he's back healthy from this. The stats kind of indicate that he's back healthy from the injury. That if you're looking at, what he's been able to do all over the course of his career as well on difficult golf courses against difficult fields, Will Zalatoris has kind of been a big game hunter, right? He's been a dude that's put himself in the mix in these very tough courses, very tough fields, very tough events over and over and over again in his very short career. And I understand if you run your models, you're not going to get the indicative numbers because he played hurt for so long that if you go back and run last 50 rounds or last 36 rounds, or maybe even last 24 rounds, depending on, how much you want to get of that era, you're not really getting the real golfer in Zalatoris. So I kind of went back before the injury and ran all of that, in which he found himself inside the top 3 in several versions of the models that I ran. And then if you go super, super short term, you see the stuff that you're looking for from a golfer that's trending in the right direction. And so, again, not a model darling for most people, because if you just go over either a time period or just 36 rounds or 50 rounds, whatever it might be, you're going to capture like the worst of the worst from him when he was playing with a very bad back injury. And so I cannot stress enough that what you're getting out of that isn't the golfer that's out there today. And so, again, another guy that I think there's a pretty decent amount of value from a win equity standpoint at 40-1 on Will Zalatoris.
5 top 10s in his last 8 majors, 3 top 2s in his last 8 majors. He has been in position to win a major several times. Could not agree with you more. He's also on my card. Last guy for me, Matt, and you can go one of 2 ways here. You can go long shots and maybe take what you said with Zalatoris and maybe combine it with Finau. But I think I'm going to use some of the promos that are out there, and this is my advice to recreational bettors who have these promos available in legal states. Use them on Jon Rahm, because you can get a 50% odds boost at Bet365 to get him like 17, 18-1. You can use the bet and get at the Masters, at DraftKings on the Masters, and basically double it to get him up to 24-1 or 22-1. And then he fits on that betting card of 3 units to win 24 units with the other guys I've mentioned on this show. And to me, it's crazy that he's below Rory on the odds board. To me, it's crazy that Jon Rahm is almost the same odds as Xander Schauffele. I think people have too quickly forgotten how good this guy is, having won multiple majors. I don't have any concerns about his form coming into this, even though he's played live. They're not great stats. They're surface level stats. And Matt, you can share what your models say about Jon Rahm because you have more in-depth live stuff. But he's second on that tour in greens and regulation and top 3 in birdies as well. So I think Jon Rahm is being a little bit forgotten here. I also think because he's being forgotten a little bit, I think he's a great play potentially in pools and DFS as well.
Yeah, I love Rahm. Absolutely. I think there's some value, like especially if you're playing DFS too, in some cheaper guys in which you might be able to fit 2 studs in and then kind of figure out the other 4 spots in a lineup. I think that's something that you could look at as well, but definitely love that a ton whenever you're looking at everything. So the last one for me, if you go over and like I said, like I was really, really, really wanting to be able to come in and love some of these dudes that I thought I was going to be able to bet this week, just wasn't going to ended up not being the case. But let's head to the matchup market and Steven, I don't know what these, maybe it's name value, maybe it's where I don't have any idea. But if you go to DraftKings right now, Jordan Spieth is matched up with Will Zalatoris in a full tournament matchup in which Jordan Spieth is minus 175.
Oh my God.
And Will Zalatoris is plus 145 in this head-to-head. Look,
excuse me while I pull out my phone in my DraftKings app.
Like, I understand the history of Spieth at this course and all this, whatever, but like, Jordan's just not in good form right now. Like, he is just not in good form. And even if you think he should be favored over Will Zalatoris, by no means should he be minus 175 comparatively to plus 145 over Will Zalatoris in this field at all. According to my models, Will Zalatoris ranks out higher in just about everything. So I actually am going like wrong guy favored here, but if at the very least, even if you think Jordan Spieth should be favored, he should never be minus 175 over Will Zalatoris in a tournament head-to-head. And so for me, that's my third play here, one that I really, really like, and one that, again, you only need one result, right? You only need one outcome. You need Will Zalatoris to finish ahead of Jordan Spieth. That's it. That's the only thing you need to go your way. And at nice plus money, at plus 145, I think that is a really nice bet.
Couldn't agree with you more, man. Could not agree with you more. I think we're kind of aligned here that in that tier of 30 to 50, there's a couple of guys, Zalatoris being one, maybe Finau, but kind of further down the list than Zalatoris. So, and frankly, for me, never Colin Morikawa now that the Masters is like, there was a day where I would have dreamed to have Colin Morikawa at 50 to 1. But he's another guy that's a fade for me. He's not hitting his irons well.
These books are smart, man. He was the first guy I went to target in head-to-heads, but they mashed him up with Justin Thomas. So it's like, it's like they're smart. Like, they're smart. They put two dudes out of form against each other and like whatever. So my number one target in head-to-heads this week was going to be Morikawa, but they put him up against, they didn't give him the matchups I needed.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I think go to the lines.com in the nav menu under golf. You can see some of the long shots history. I think the last note I just want to leave everybody, don't get long shot happy in the Masters. Like, triple digit guys don't win very often. You can go and see the history on the site of how often it's happened. I would be looking more.
The last one was Charles Schwartzel in 2011, and he was right at 100 to 1. Right? I mean, like, so just to let you know, it just doesn't happen.
But I'll at least give you a nugget. Like, if you want to try and play like a top 20 or something, I'll tell you the guy with odds like that peaked the most for me is a debutant, and it's Steven Yeager. And I suspect because it's because he's so good with his long irons. Like,
people think like, oh, long shots win all the time. Look at Danny Willett. People forget, like, Danny Willett actually came in on a heater in for the Masters, and he was only 50 to 1. Like, Danny Willett was only 50 to 1 on the odds board to win the Masters. So I think people think that like he was a 200 to 1 or something, or like, but it's like, no, he was actually coming in really great form, and he was only 50 to 1 when the tournament went off. Literally, the last triple digit guy was Charles Schwartzel back in 2011, and again, he was right at 100 to 1. Like, it wasn't a 105, it wasn't 110. He was 100 to 1 when it went off. It just doesn't happen, and I think if you're trying to get cute, I think it's probably to your detriment. Like, if you want to play a triple digit guy, like you said, Steve, I mean, find you a top 10 you like, find you a top 20 on that guy. If you want to get froggy, play a top 5 on him or something, but the win equity on those guys is just really, really, really low at a course like this.
I couldn't agree more. I think the only way there's an exception to that rule is because it's a good quality golfer coming from LIV that all the market movers can't quantify because of a lack of data in their analysis. So, but even those guys like Patrick Reed, Tyrrell Hatton, they're more like in the 70 to 80 to 1 range.
As we said, guys, 89 total golfers, top 50 and ties make the cut. We got 67 PGA Tour players, 12 from LIV. We have 5 amateurs in the field, 4 senior past champions, and then 1 DP World Tour automatic qualifier. That's going to make up your 89 players for the week. And man, I cannot wait. Humble brag, getting on a plane tomorrow, heading to Augusta. First time.
No way, man.
First time taking it in person. So can't wait to get over there.
Tweet some pics, like, share it, man. That's amazing. Good for you. I'm really happy for you. Like, that is a bucket list item.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. So can't wait to get out there for that as well. But guys, as we said, full cards posted over in the Discord, over on thelines.com, upper right-hand corner. Click on that. You can get in absolutely free. And, of course, everything we do, absolutely free. So please go ahead, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and then let us know in the comment section if there's anything that you'd like us to talk about in future episodes here of the Par 3 for Steven. I am Matt. Good luck on all your Masters bets.